Look at that gorgeous rib. That isn't red from being undercooked. It's so cooked, it's literally falling off of the bone. That is red from the smoke. Folks, these ribs are delicious. Absolutely buttery soft. And this recipe, well, when you learn how to do this the right way, you're never going to want to go out for barbecue again, because you just can't get it this good anywhere but in your own smoker. Today I'm going to make some barbecue. Barbecue! Texas barbecue's delicious. Barbecue. There's a lot of different ways of seeing barbecue. And today's going to have a lot of different recipes and a lot of information here. All right, so what we're looking at, I'm getting some kick-over light here. Do this. What we're looking at today is several recipes. I'm going to be doing a dry rub recipe that was actually done yesterday. They're in there marinating now. Also, there's going to be a mop recipe. The smoking method itself is actually a recipe when you get right down to it. And then there's the barbecue sauce. Now in the United States, a lot of people try to make their own barbecue sauce, and they kind of shoot blind, and I don't know why people for some reason turn to ketchup. Man, that's not barbecue sauce, folks. Okay, let's get real. Folks, a lot of barbecue sauces are based upon using a base, a carrier, as it were. So folks will use ketchup, or in some recipes they use tomato paste. And a lot of the recipes you see in stores work this way. There's some tomato paste there. They have a lot of corn syrup, and then there's flavorings from chili powders. Well, I'm thinking instead of taking something like ketchup or tomato paste or whatever and trying to make it taste like chilies by using chili powders, why not just make chili paste and then dilute that into whatever kind of barbecue sauce you want to turn it into? So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to make my own barbecue sauce. I've got a couple of chilies set aside, 2 different kinds, just for this. It's going to be simple enough. And once you learn how to do this, you're going to be off and running. Folks, there's a lot of information in this video. So please, if the tutorials are kind of long for you and all you're looking for is just the recipe, the previous episode to this one is the same thing as far as the recipes go. It's the same recipes. I shoot different videos for it, but it's shot at the same time and it's the same recipes. This video is a tutorial that goes into depth on all of the details of how to barbecue, how to set up an offset smoker, how to create a chili paste for your own barbecue sauce, how to do a dry rub, how to prep ribs, by removing silver skin. There's a lot of how-to information in this video because this is like barbecue 101. I just wanted to cover the whole topic today, and I thought this would be a great time to do it. So, today, this video, this tutorial, this class, I don't know, what do we call it? This is barbecue. Let's get in the kitchen and get this happening. Come on. I'm ready to process my ribs. I have my paper towels. Now, armed with paper towels, I can handle ribs. Let me show you something about ribs. Sometimes on the back side of ribs, and let me flip this one over also, sometimes you'll see this, and sometimes you'll see a glossy, shiny coating like this. Now what that means is the packer on this one took this surface off. Okay, and this is called silver skin, is what a lot of chefs call this. It's connective tissue, folks. This is nasty stuff. It's gristly, it's tough, it's sinewy. You don't want it on your meat. They were nice enough to pull it off on this, and I rarely ever see this when I pull it out of a packing wrap to see that silver skin removed, and it was refreshing to see that. I wanted to show you how to take this off. You got to use a paper towel. I have already dried these off for the most part, so they're not too wet. I want to grab the corner of that silver skin, this little corner right down here, and that's what we're going for. That little guy, I'm going to grab it with the paper towel. Now the paper towel, what it does is it gives me traction. If I grab it with my fingers, they'll just slide off of the thing because it's too slick. All right, now just pull that, and see, once you got a hold of it, it just strips right off of that meat. Bam, we have removed the silver skin. Now this one is just like that one. Isn't that neat? Okay, that's all you got to do to get that off, is just arm yourself with a paper towel and go at it. There's a little bit more right here that I could remove if I wanted to get serious. I see there how I'm a hard time grabbing it because my hand is slipping loose. But if I was using something else, like a paper towel, I could grab that easily. So we'll grab the back side of it. There we go, pulled it right out of there. Now that had a little meat with it, but it was no big deal. It gives me a nice clean rib now, and that's what I want to see. Boom, these are ready to be seasoned, okay? Nice ribs right there. They don't need any other trimming. Don't remove any of the fat. On baby back ribs like this, spare ribs, beef ribs, the fat, the little bit of fat that they have is really needed. It renders down through the meat. It tastes delicious, makes the meat soft and so good. And folks, it should stay there, so don't go cutting on that fat at all. Leave ribs alone. If you want to do a dry rub, that's a good thing, and it's something that a lot of people do. I'm going to show you that next. Okay, we have finished prepping out our ribs and got that nasty old silver skin off of that. I have them with the meat side up. This is the only side that you have to worry about doing a dry rub on. If you do it the other side, you can do it. It won't hurt anything, but it's really not going to do much benefit. This is our meat side. I laid out some different items here that you can use for your dry rub. I'm not going to say you should have to use any certain thing. But some lessons I've learned over time is when it comes to doing a dry rub, when it comes to putting together a grouping of spices to rub onto meat, too many flavors messes up the meat. Stick to something simple. Stick to 3 of the spices, and if you want, add some salt to it. Now, salt is sort of your odd man out when it comes to flavoring foods. You can put it in there or you can leave it out. Either way, if you're salt sensitive, leave it out. Won't change a thing. Salt is the one item we add to our food that wasn't in some way organic, that it didn't grow, okay? So this is a mineral that's off to the side. Black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, sage, cumin, paprika, and cayenne. Of these, I'm going to use the cumin, paprika, and cayenne, and I'm going to use 2 parts of this, 2 parts of this to 1 part of that. In other words, half as much cayenne to the paprika and cumin, and makes a wonderful flavor. I'm just going to sprinkle it on, put it in the fridge, and let it sit there overnight, and that's all it takes. Whichever you want to choose, if you wanted to do, let's say, paprika and sage and garlic, that is wonderful together, okay? So figure out one that works for you, make your own rub, and go at it, folks. It's just a matter of experimenting. But as I said, keep the number of spices to a minimum, no more than 3, okay? That's a good way of doing it. We're gonna spice these up next. We have to get these ready for putting them in the fridge for tomorrow. That's when we're going to be barbecuing. Oh yeah, a little bit of salt. Don't go crazy with the salt, okay? It doesn't take a whole lot. You know, pork picks up salt and works with it really well, so you can be kind of gentle with it, ladies and gentlemen, okay? In other words, don't lose your mind with the salt. There we go. The next thing I like to do is the spice I'm going to use the least of, which is going to be the hottest one. This is cayenne. I love cayenne, folks, but boy, let me tell you, if something will heat up a food, it's this right here, and it'll do it really doggone quick. So you might want to be conservative in your use of the cayenne. It is delicious, it's good food, but it's mighty hot. Be prepared. Now, you've seen how much of that I used. I'm going to use about twice as much of that in the way of my cumin.
So I want a nice deep layer of cumin. Cumin is really cool. It has this, I call it an earthy flavor. Okay, it really is. It's earthy. If anything reminded you of the flavor of the soil that you grow food in, cumin resembles that very, very well. Sounds kind of weird. You don't want your food to taste like dirt, but cumin has an earthiness to it that you just can't get around. Now, this is paprika. And paprika is a mild chili, okay? Some people think it's hot. I feel sorry for you if you think it's hot, because to me, of all of the chilies that I use, my paprika is the mildest of them. All right. And I use plenty of it. I just layer it right on there. Now, some people say, oh, you got to rub it in. You don't have to rub that in. It's on it. You can't get more on the meat than on the meat. Okay, so it's on the meat. It's ready to be covered. So put plastic wrap on it. Put it under refrigeration. Tomorrow we're going to get the grill up and running and nice and hot. And we're going to turn these into some delicious ribs. Just give them time, folks. That's all it takes. Getting ready to start my smoker. Now I'm using an offset smoker, and a lot of folks in Texas like those. The vertical smokers get used some, but I think for larger, longer cuts of meat, the offset smoker affords a lot more grill space for that. Okay, so there's the smoke chamber's just usually wider, and that's its big advantage. Any kind of wood you want to use, but if you're going to go with that Texas flavor, folks, there's a tree in Texas that we see as a menace. This thing it's got a bite that's way worse than its bark. It is called the mesquite tree, and they've got huge thorns. They will rip you to pieces. Great as a defense tree, but they're ugly as an ornamental tree. They have beautiful wood for cabinetry, and it is a wood that is very, very tasty. If you've never cooked with mesquite, you've missed out and you need to try it. I don't use little wood chunks to smoke with. It just doesn't work. You need big pieces of wood. And you can go with a natural wood fire, but it has a tendency to burn a little bit hot. It also needs a little more care and tender loving attendance than if you're using this stuff here, which is charcoal. Charcoal, good stuff. Charcoal is just wood that has been compressed in, basically it was shredded, then compressed under great heat, and it produced this briquette. And these burn for a longer period of time than that chunk, which is a little bigger than this, will burn. Okay, so this releases heat for about 2 hours, and this guy will release heat for about 30 to 45 minutes. There's a big difference there. This makes a good controlled fire and heat source, and then I take my wood after it's been soaked in water and I place it on the metal outside, or to the side of the fire actually, and I just line it around on the metal smoker box, the fire box. I line it around the outside of the charcoal, not on top of it, and that way it slowly smolders and releases an even smoke, and it's great. So I'm using mesquite charcoal, mesquite wood, and that's Texas flavor. Never, please, ladies and gentlemen, never use lighter fluid for your charcoal. Only start it naturally. Use paper. Lighter fluid builds a coating on the inside of a smoker, and it's an oily coating that releases that lighter fluid, that creosote-like flavor, releases it into the food, and it can ruin barbecue. And those of us who know the difference in the taste will spot it immediately. Please always start it just naturally. A little newspaper on one of these chimney starters, 20 minutes later, and it is ready to go. So it's the best way to start it. Get you some gloves. You're going to need heavy leather gloves for handling this because it gets really hot. Your wood, get it soaking. Don't go with small chips like this. Small chips like this are great for like a smoker's tray that sits off to the side of a grill, like a gas grill. But if you're smoking and you've got a firebox going, you need some big chunks of wood, and you need a whole bunch of them soaking in water. That way you get controlled smoke release. You want it to come slowly with that wood. Some people will say water makes no difference, but frankly, yeah, it really does. I've done it both ways, and it does smolder slower. The chunks last longer. You're going to need a little pan. Little pan goes underneath the meat. Little pan has water in it. Water keeps that smoke chamber from getting dry and drying out your meat, so it keeps it humid and moist in there. Very important. A cheap foil pan. It's going to catch some drippings from the meat. You can just throw it away when you're finished. It's an inexpensive thing. All right, there we have it. Big tongs are very helpful for this, and you'll see in a little bit. It really makes the job much easier. So we have our starter chimney all loaded up, newspapers underneath. The smoker is laid out. I've got one of the grates opened on one side here so I can get my water pan in there before putting the meat in. Keep your chimney all the way open when you're doing this at all times. Always keep it open. That ensures a smooth smoke flow. Otherwise, it'll back up and it won't run properly. All right, now the fire chamber is this box over here. This is your fire box. All of our heated stuff is going to go right in there. Now I have a grate that I can put over that. They're down there, and then dump the charcoal down into it, but I find that grate is hard to deal with when it's been heated up by this. It's much easier lighting it on this grate, and then I can just dust it off to clean it, and my smoke box is ready to go. I do it that way. Anyway, I'm going to light up my paper now. We're going to get this thing rolling. Once it's producing good heat and this is starting to ash over on top, we're going to get going on the rest of it. Now, a little bit of fire underneath. There I go. Alrighty. I'm getting that of enough to really get it going well. And it's going to start smoking a whole lot at first. And that's normal. That's just that newspaper burning off. After it burns off, that charcoal will produce a little smoke, but nowhere near as much. So give it time, and this takes about 20 minutes. When it's done, then we're going to be producing lots and lots and lots of good barbecue. All right, some other things that you need to know. Right over there on the side of that smoker box is a little door, and that door has a little bit of a gate on it, and that gate is actually a damper is what they call it, and that lets air through. So open it all the way up. Don't let it be closed. Make sure that your chimney stack is all the way open also. After we establish the right temperature, then we'll start choking down the inlet air. We always leave the chimney all the way open. As I mentioned, always use gloves when handling one of these. They can burn you, they get hot. Remember, you got a fiery hot thing going on here. It's ashed over on top. It's lots of hot coals in there, so be careful how you handle it. All right, it's that simple. I'm gonna let that cool off where it was heating up. I'm gonna close my damper just a little bit. I'm going to leave the damper door ajar, and I'm going to close this so it starts concentrating that heat and heating up the steel on that box. This, we'll put him underneath on some grates. There we are. Get rid of that paper. Okay, now close this. This is time to get this thing heated up. In a moment, I'm going to bring out my water pan, get water down in the bottom of the smoke chamber as this is heating up. And then when that temperature is at the right temperature, and that's right about 200 degrees, we're going to put the meat on it. Now my temperature on this is right at about 250, and that's about easily 50 degrees hotter than I want it. And it really does matter. It matters in how well the meat takes in smoke, because if the meat begins to sear or overcook on the outside, it then won't take in the smoke as well. Now, here I go. I'm getting ready to heat this up. We'll move my charcoal around a little bit. We're going to add some. Now, I generally don't like to add too much at once, about, average of 12 briquettes to 15 at a time. just enough to kind of barely cover the charcoal. I'm going to shut this door. I want to leave the damper full open still and get my water pan in there. All right, water pan needs to go down below where you're going to put your meat and put water directly into that. I'm using hot water here. And get the grill grate in place. There we go. This is ready and set up for my meat for whenever the right temperature on it is reached. I have my chunks of wood down here soaking, and those will go on the metal on the sides of the smoker box, I should say on the side of the fire box, not directly on the fire, but to the sides of it on the metal. Now, what I'm looking for is 200 degrees, and the smoke coming out of the chimney needs to be wispy and light blue, kind of a blue and wispy color. That's what I'm looking for. It'll get there. We need to do our mop sauce. Now, a mop sauce is a way of keeping moisture locked into meat. That's what it's for. But you want your mop sauce to match what you're doing. All right, so my mop sauce is going to be a combination of oil and vinegar. Most mop sauces are. The whole idea there is to add a layer to the meat that protects it from moisture loss, thus the oil. The acid from the vinegar helps to break any rind buildup, but we cook off most of the moisture of the vinegar. We add in the same spices that we used for the dry rub. So we got cayenne, cumin, and paprika, and we're going to add them in the same proportion so we don't change anything as far as the flavor of the dry rub that we've put on our meat. That has been sitting overnight in the fridge. All we want to do is to enhance the moisture without messing with the flavor. Okay? That's our mop sauce and how we're going to make it. Now, a mop, so you'll know, that's one of these guys. That's a mop. And it looks like a mop because it's a mop, okay? It's just a tiny mop and it's made for cooking. All right, and that's what a mop is, and the mop sauce we'll get into in a little bit, but we need to get the meat down on the heat because it is smoky and ready to go. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke is right. It's blue, it's wispy, and the temperature on my box is just a little over 200. It's about 225, and that'll work good for making barbecue. Now, let's take a look down below because there's some good food about to happen here. Oh yeah, look at that. My temperature's at 225. These have been marinating long enough overnight, and that gives a good flavor. So they're going to go on the smoke now. Now down below there I have my pan of water all set up and ready to go. These, let's get them right up here in the middle so they get good smoking action. Now, something I want to mention, get the meat apart from each other so there's space in between and not too close to the firebox because you don't want that end getting overcooked on these ribs. They're thinner, they're not heavy like a brisket, remember that. So, give it time and plenty of smoke. A little bit ago I just added some charcoal. I usually add anywhere from 12 to 15 charcoal bricks per 30 minutes onto the fire, and then I put the wood that has been soaked in water, this good stuff right here, put that down into the fire around the sides of it onto the metal so it slowly smolders. Oops, pardon me, so it smolders slowly. There we go. It's a matter of time now. The quantity of everything that I have used on the mop sauce, that is 1 cup of oil, 1/2 cup of vinegar. Pick your choice on either one. To that I used 1/4 cup of, or excuse me, not 1/4 cup, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cayenne, 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. We boil it all up until most of that liquid in the vinegar gets cooked off, and then it's ready to be used on the meat. Barbecue sauce does not have to have 15 different ingredients to make it right. There's generally something that makes it sweet, something that makes it taste like chilies. That's what we got here, chilies. And then something else that's usually added for flavor, you know, like onion powder or garlic powder, or in this case, I'm going to be using bourbon. So what we're going to be doing here is a Chipotle bourbon barbecue sauce. It's going to be really good. Now, if you notice, I got a lot more of these chilies than these. The Chipotle chili is pretty robust in its flavor. It adds a lot to any sauce. So I'm using 1 part of the Chipotle chilies to 4 parts of this chili, which is a guajillo chili. That's Guajillo. Guajillo. Guajillo chilies are delicious. They are the chili that's used for that beautiful bright red sauce that you see on enchiladas. That's where it comes from right there. There is another type of chili that is commonly dried, and that is the Anaheim chili. The Anaheim chili, when it's dried in California, they call that a California chili. In Colorado, they call it a Colorado chili. Now, New Mexico went a little further. They came up with their own variant. They called it a hatch, and that is what they use. So New Mexico chili is actually, you know, that's a hatch chili, and they're delicious. All right, so give that a try. It makes a good option for this. The Chipotle chili is what it is. That's a jalapeno that has been smoked and then dried the same way these were dried, and now that's Chipotle. All I have to do is rehydrate those, and I'm going to get this paste that will make a lot of sauce. I have something here to sweeten it, some brown sugar, and I have this to flavor it. This is bourbon. It doesn't matter what kind, just something that you enjoy. And if you don't like bourbon, or if you don't do alcohol, that's fine. Simply omit that. That's all you have to do. We're going to be adding water to this anyway, so that's what you're going to be putting in there. That's all there is to it. Keep your barbecue sauce simple, and people will really appreciate the flavors that you have going on. So I have my knife handy. I need to get my chilies out here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to split these things lengthwise so that when I get them into hot water, they will rehydrate. Now, the pulp on the inside of the chili, that's what I'm needing. The skin is useless. The seeds are useless. But I don't have to worry about cleaning those out right now. I don't have to do that. Now, a lot of people would normally do that when they're working with chilies. But because I like to work chilies using a French food mill, ladies and gentlemen, that little darling just makes working things like this an absolute treat. It's so easy. So, big bowl, something to put all of these in once you get them cut. Now, I'm going to forewarn you, when it comes to cutting through these things, they're generally very, very tough, all right? So it takes sort of a little different approach than just being delicate with it. So I plunge the tip of my knife in first and gently rock it down, and that's what I have to do. The Chipotles are definitely a harder chili when it comes to working them, okay? Ouch, that water's hot. Okay, so we've got them split. We have them soaking in the water. When they get nice and soft and pulpy, and that'll be an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours from now, then we're gonna run them through a food mill. After that, we then cook up what we make there. We add some water to it and our bourbon and a little sugar. We cook that up, and we have got barbecue sauce that is heavenly. It's just that simple. This is simple on a mop sauce. We take our oil, put it in here, the vinegar, and our spices right in there. Now I need to whisk that together. There we go. those spices have come together well. This is wonderful what I have already. When this starts to boil, it's going to cook out that vinegar. It's going to have a wickedly strong smell. So be prepared for that, okay? Be prepared not to have your nose over the pot, or the acidy smell that gets lifted out of this is going to burn your nose a little. Now what that does is it just makes the whole thing slightly more acidic, and it helps to break any rind that builds up on the meat, allowing the smoke to penetrate better and trapping moisture at the same time. That's the whole idea of a mop sauce. The temperature's still running about 225. Since that's in the parameter that I look for, that's good. I'm seeing a little dryness on top of this, and that's mostly the spices drying out. That's not so much the meat has a problem, but the meat will have a problem. So we deal with it through what we call a mop. It's just as simple, mop it. Just like you were mopping a floor. Nothing more difficult. And this does a couple of things. It allows, number one, for that smoke to get into the meat. And the second thing it does, it helps to add, well, it doesn't add moisture. It helps to protect the existing moisture so it doesn't cook out as easy. So that's our mop sauce. It's an important item. Now, the other thing is, when you see barbecue and you hear people say true barbecue will have a red band in it. And that's true, all right? And that is because the smoke is reacting with the myoglobin in the meat. Now, the myoglobin is the protein that makes the meat red colored. It's not the hemoglobin from the blood, that's the blood. Okay, the myoglobin is what makes the meat red. And what we're doing by putting smoke against it is that adds nitrates and nitrites, and those are preservatives that preserve the color of the meat as you smoke it. That's what gives you that red band. It's that simple. Now I'm going to check out my fire, make sure it's hot and going the way I want. My chilies have soaked for a few hours now. So what I'm doing is I'm stripping the stem off of these chilies, dropping them for the most part whole down in there. I'm breaking into like halves like that, but you know, it's you don't have to do much serious processing is what I'm getting at. Now, if seeds like that get down in there, don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt a thing, because that's the beauty of the food mill. It will separate out those seeds and give you just the paste on the inside of this chili. So it's a really neat processing method. It gives you a very pure chili paste, and you're going to see that here in just a little bit. This is not something where if you're looking at it and you're going, oh man, I don't want to sit there and crank for hours trying to get, no, that's not the way it works. This takes minutes to take care of, not hours. And so don't be afraid of it. All we have to do is just get my chilies down into this. Now sometimes you get a big old bundle of seeds. Just separate those out if it's easy to do so. Again, I'm not going to fight the situation when it comes to seeds, because plenty of them are getting down in this. So I'm not worried about that. Now, why don't I use a blender? So in case you're wondering, wouldn't that just be easier to run it through a blender and then put it through a strainer? Okay, that method works, but it doesn't produce nearly as good of a product. Number one, this chili has slow soaked, so it has a very delicate and beautiful flavor, and it was the flavor that was developed as it turned red, as it aged and dried. Because dried chilies are not dehydrated chilies, they are slow dried. They are left sitting out, and they slowly dry out and change colors and become the wonderful things that we're looking at here. I have all of my chilies in my mill right now. All I have to do is crank the paddle. Now, something I find that helps me out just a little bit is when I pull this right up against my body. You can see how it kind of moves around a little bit. So if I press it against my chest just a little bit, just allow it to press gently, it keeps it from doing that most of the time. So anyway, here we go. Just need to mill this out. And as this goes, we're going to get a paste that forms underneath it. This has only been, what, me milling for maybe 20 seconds. And it has pressed down a great bit of the chilies. Something that really helps is having one of these spatulas, and anything that gets caught up on the side that's not feeding down through, you just give it a little push and it'll go right down through that mill, okay? So what I'll do is I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to set up a timer, and it's a count up timer, and it's going to tell how long it's going to take me to finish milling this out. So, boom, start. 1, 2, there it goes. Okay, that's what I'm going to do, and I'll turn the cameras right back on when I'm finished. Alright, I have just stopped long enough to turn my cameras back on. 3 minutes and 13, 14, 15. Okay, so around 3 minutes worth of milling has gotten me the majority of my milling. Now I could sit here and try to work out a little bit more of the paste, but for the most part it's completed. Let's take a close look underneath this thing and see what that paste is really like and what it's yielded us at this point. Let's take a look underneath and see what we've got. Now, first of all, what is still stuck to this is just incredible. Look at that beautiful, clean chili paste. That's the stuff I'm talking about right there. That's what makes really good sauces and stuff, okay? And the thing of it is it is a paste, it's a concentrate. You're going to be adding water to this to thin it down and to give you a good viable product. And you can turn this paste into so many different things. Oh, there it is. So a bunch of skins and seeds in the top, nothing useful. And what we need is right down here in this pot. Well, I have this beautiful chili paste all fixed up, and look how much there is there. That is easily, I would say, about 1.5 cups. I might be able to come close to filling up a pint with that. It might be 2 cups worth. That's a lot of paste right there. And so the amount of chilies we used yields a really good amount of product. It's a beautiful product, and it's clean. It doesn't have any seeds or any of the products that you don't want in it. It's devoid of it. First thing I want to do, I want to get my bourbon down in there. Knock this off. There we go. Get most of that off of there. And get my whisk in here and get busy stirring that in, as well as some water. Now this is going to take in a little bit of water. Consistency. How do I want this? How thick do I want it? I'm looking for a barbecue sauce, okay? So something like that, which I just about have right here. That's worked out really nice and quick. Okay. What I was doing right there is just pushing on the end of the whisk with my palm open, and the outer tine will track along the edge of the bottom of the pan and clean it. Right there, really neat. I'm going to put in a portion of my sugar, not all of it. I want only about half of what I have here. I'm just going to work that in, and I'm going to put a flame under this. We're going to bring it up in temperature. And I'm going to cook this without a lid, because we're wanting to cook off the alcohol that's in this. If I have a lid on it, it's just going to recycle it down. But if the lid is off, as it comes up in temperature, the alcohol's the first thing that's going to boil in that. It's the same way a still works. As a still heats up, the alcohol that's in the still, it starts to boil. That's 173 degrees. And it lifts up and it goes into a cone and then into a drip tube. It's what they call a condensation tube. And it drips out as a strong, potent alcohol, rarely with anything else other than just alcohol. Alright, so that's how a still works, and that's how this is working, except we're not catching the alcohol, we're cooking it out. If you cover it up, you're keeping the alcohol in. So we cook it with it open until we lose that smell of alcohol. And you'll see it, you'll smell it at the very first. When it first starts to steam and you see that steam and you smell that, and you'll notice it smells just like when you open a bottle of rubbing alcohol or something like that, or a bottle of vodka. It smells the same, all right? And that's just that alcohol cooking out. Let it do that, okay? Be patient. Let this cook. It's over a medium flame, and as it starts to simmer, and once it cooks out its alcohol, I'll put a lid on it, partially caulked. As it cooks out too much moisture, I'll just add extra water. We put in about 1.5 cups of water to begin with. I've been cooking this for just a few minutes now, long enough that it has cooked enough to be safe to test and taste. And that's what I'm going to do. Put my spoon in there. I want to get a taste of this and see if I need a little more sugar or not. It should be spicy because there was chilies used here. Oh yeah. It's good tasting. I think it needs a little bit more sugar. And so I'm going to put in the remainder of what I have. It is spicy. It's got a bite to it. But it should. Come on, let's get real. Now this is thickened up a little bit, and it didn't take much for that to happen. And that's pretty normal. Chili paste takes in a lot of water, and then it thickens up pretty quick. All right, we'll let that simmer some more. This is what they're supposed to look like. Nice and dark brown. That's my timer telling me that there's an end coming to my waiting period, because right now they're resting. See how the bone is protruding, and the meat is pulling back easily from the bones on these. And when they reach that point, that's when your ribs are done. That's how you know they're done, is when you get them pulling back from the bone and it's protruding a little bit like that. That's just perfect. Now, if I want, I can put some sauce on these. I could put some of that barbecue sauce on there, put them down in the oven at about 400 for 15 minutes. It would glaze over and be beautiful, bright red glaze of that barbecue sauce. Or you can just paint it on after they're cut. That's the way I like to do it, because sometimes I want the meat just beautifully seasoned and nice and smoky. Oh yes. I have really been looking forward to enjoying these ribs. Okay. Right there. Oh, now look at this beautiful pink color in here. Folks, ouch, that is warm. Let me get it up here. That pink color isn't not cooked, okay? This has been cooking, let me see my total exact cooking time. This has been cooking for about 8 hours, all right? The reason it's red in the middle is because of the smoking process. It preserved the color of the meat. Even though it is so cooked, it's literally pulling free from the bone. It is pink throughout, as if it was medium rare beef. And that is a good way to do your ribs right there. Oh, baby back ribs the right way. Gotta be careful how I cut these, because the meat is literally coming off the bone, so it's hard to cut. Ooh, give me a taste. Oh yeah. Here's the one I'm going to pick at and enjoy, since I messed it up just a little bit. Oh yes. That has flavor that is incredible. The ribs are totally delicious. This is the kind of thing I'm looking for when I want really, really good barbecue ribs. Barbecue. It's literally just falling from the bone. That's all I have to do is just pick the meat free from it. Enjoy it with a little sauce. Folks, that's what barbecue should be. Delicious, well-smoked meat. Now here's the thing. You look at this rib, the meat looks raw. It's not. That's not raw meat. That's cooked all the way through. That was cooked for 8 hours. It is so tender, literally falling from the bone. That is the effect of smoke on meat. The smoke preserves the color in the meat itself, in the myoglobin, and it comes out red like that when it's been smoked properly. And that's how you can tell. You know, you always tell good barbecue, and people will say this, they'll say, look for the red band. Now, when it comes to these, they're so thin, I was able to get that smoke all the way through the meat. All the way through. So I've got this magnificent flavor from one end to the other on these ribs. It's perfect. Folks, if you would please take a look at Texas Cooking Today. There's a lot of good recipes on there. Take a look in the description box below and you're going to see some links. You're going to see links to Texas Cooking Today, also to another channel I have here, which is Chef Trotter's Tips. Also, there is my website, which is S.A.Trotter.com, and that is S.A.Trotter Arts. S.A.Trotter Arts is, well, that's me. And my company produces Texas Cooking Today, so that's how this all works out. Now, that link is going to get you the recipes and things like my cap. There'll be other goodies that come out for Texas Cooking Today, some aprons and shirts. Folks, thank you very much for watching this. Please enjoy your barbecue. I certainly will be. And have a very good day. Please stay safe. Thank you. Yeah, it was so good.